Welcome to General Services Public Works Committee. Joining us today, we have Councilmember Woody McEvers filling in for Dan English. Today is May 10th, 2021, noon, and we are here in the library community room. We have 3 items on our agenda today, one being a presentation from the fire department. And to start us off, we have Director Renata McLeod, and item number 1, approval of amendments to Municipal Code Section 5.08.170 to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages by a nonprofit theater and to remove the restriction related to proximity to a park. Welcome, Renata.
Thank you. Well, this is an item that was brought forward to the city about a year ago. The Lake City Playhouse Theater wanted to be able to serve some beer and wine during intermission. They're not really zoned appropriately. It needs to be a commercial zone in order to have the alcohol for consumption on property. So we worked through it. COVID happened. Their urgency kind of dissipated. So once again, they've approached staff to bring this forward. We kind of talked through some of the zoning issues and really felt like it's time to bring it forward to council to weigh in and see what direction you guys want staff to go. But the one other item that came up was that distance from a park. So this is a code that's been on the books for many years, and since that time we've allowed actual consumption in the park with special permits, and the 300-foot zone seemed, we don't know why it was ever established that way. It's not in the state beer and wine or liquor codes. It is something specifically set up for the city of Coeur d'Alene. So we felt like it might be the right time to open that dialogue with council and see if there's a desire to remove that. And I'm going to give you, oops, sorry, I forgot I had a slide here for you. Give you a couple examples. So one of the things that happens in our code is we have this downtown business district that's excluded from those requirements. So within that code, we've allowed the downtown businesses to operate within 300 feet of a church, a school, a playground, and so that particular area is excluded from that code already. So you have that area right near the McEwen Park area that abuts the commercial zone downtown that already allows for it. Now we have a couple businesses just on the outside of that line that have come forward with some requests. So this one in particular is a little establishment next to Toro Viejo, and they have a state of Idaho issued liquor license, but they're just outside of that zone. And as you can see by our code, that 300-foot circumference is this red line. So it just hits that bitty corner of the park there. So they are not allowed to have consumption of alcohol on their premise outside of being an eating establishment. And they do not plan to be an eating establishment. So just to give you a bigger picture idea, and I know this map may be a little difficult to see, but this is the city limits of Coeur d'Alene. Inside the city limits, you have all those zonings areas. The areas that this is pertinent to are the ones in red. So any city park that would be within 300 feet of the red zone would be what this code would change. So if there was an establishment in any of those red areas that wanted to operate that were near a park, they would be allowed to do that if you change this code. Where this might become applicable now is as we included 2 more parks on Sherman Avenue, and as we go to do some development on East Sherman, some of those little nooks and crannies of beer and wine establishment that want to have consumption on site but don't really want to run a restaurant would not be allowed to come in at this point. So if we amend this code, it would allow for those sorts of developments to occur within those little 2 parks there. Obviously, down near our city park is the one we're talking about right now because we had a couple folks come in the downtown area, but not within that downtown core. So they are not allowed to do that at this time. I did check in with law enforcement, and at this point, they are really not supportive of removing that 300 feet of a park. And due to some concerns with what's going on in our downtown area now, that maybe that's just going to add an increased workload, and maybe some potential influences of drunk people going into the park. I think that was the original concern for that code to be placed in the first place. But right now you have stuff that maybe is 301 feet away from the park that's serving for consumption. So staff really felt like this was maybe the time to open up that dialogue and say, is it really an antiquated code? Is it really something we want on the books now? Or are there other ideas you may have that will allow for some of those business developments to come forward? So with that, and I wanted to let you know that Brooke, the manager of the Lake City Playhouse, had a family matter come up. She was planning on being here today, and she really expressed her desire for that code amendment. I stand for questions.
I'll take a shot.
Okay.
You don't mind me going first, girls?
Please do.
Okay. Couple questions. So basically, you're asking about the 300-foot rule. Is that what we're kind of
The
focusing on?
300-foot rule, and there's a little exemption we would allow for nonprofit theaters under the exemption section because they aren't in the proper zoning for a liquor license. So under our exception section.
So let me ask you, so this has been changing, or in the past, we used to not let people drink in the parks.
Right.
Now they can get the special permit, stay in a closed area,
Right.
things like that. There was a place up off of Government Way near a church that wanted a beer and wine license, a sandwich place. And did we manipulate that?
That
or-
might have been when we put, if it's incidental to an eating establishment.
Okay.
But under Idaho State Code, they're not allowed to be within the, what is it,
300.
600 feet of residential or 300 feet of a school or a church.
Okay.
But if they're an eating establishment, that's allowable.
Okay, got it. Would this change, if we went with just what you're asking for, would it impact all the proximities and from R1 to R12? Would it
No,
make
the
any difference?
residential zones are still exempt from having any sort of beer, wine, or alcohol for consumption. That's only allowed in your commercial zones. So when I showed you that zoning map, just
Right.
those red zones are allowed to have that.
But in proximity to, are we still at the 300 feet? Because
Yes.
basically Sherman's Alley, there's homes right behind there, right?
Right. So if they're an eating establishment, they can be within that 300 feet of a residential zone. Not within the residential zone, but
Gotcha.
within proximity to. They do have an ability to go in and get a petition from the neighborhood that says that the neighborhood, I think it's 65% of the neighborhood would have to agree to allow it. But again, they have to be within a commercial zone. So it's just that area abutting it, yes.
And they still have to serve food,
For within the 300 feet,
right, of the residential?
600 feet of the residential. So it's 300 feet from a church or a school.
School.
600 feet from residential zones.
But as long as you're serving food, you're okay in
Yes,
the right zone?
yes, for beer and wine consumption.
This doesn't have any impact on the sidewalk seating for restaurants or bars? I know within the district, what if somebody up on Government Way, up on the north end, wanted to put people on the sidewalk? Would we have to change the rule, or?
No, they're still allowed to do it because the outdoor seating permit is based on it being an eating establishment.
Eating establishment, okay. Okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Sorry, yes.
That's okay. Well, just following up a little bit, I'm trying to understand if, let's for instance, talk about the park that we've approved on East Sherman. So for instance, if we rescind the 300-foot rule, there still could be, you couldn't just have wall-to-wall bars down there across from the parks because you still need to be not within the residential zone, and you have to be in a commercial zone, and you have to serve food, correct?
Well, if we amended this, you would be able to have an establishment in a commercial zone that would be within 300 feet of a park that could sell liquor.
Of a park.
Without food.
But not the residential.
Right, it doesn't
Okay.
affect the residential requirements at all.
So by leveling the playing field a little bit, because this is a bit antiquated, we're really not opening ourselves up to wall-to-wall bars.
No, and remember, we're still throttled by the state as to how many liquor licenses you get based on your population. So right now, we have as many as allowed. The one over near Toro Viejo, they've actually held that with their restaurant for years and now need to make a decision whether they're giving up that liquor license or whether they're keeping it. So they're cordoning off that one little part of the building to be, that's what their desire is anyway, to be just a bar. It's a little cantina next to the restaurant. 2 different liquor licenses.
Sure, okay. Well, and I agree with Woody that we are, we're allowing permits in the parks, we're having concerts in the parks. This does seem outdated. Certainly law enforcement's concerns are valid, we will have to monitor this to see if we have to beef up our staff in law enforcement, but it just seems like that 300-foot rule, we don't even know where it originated. And I don't know, Woody, were you on the council? Was it like 4 or 5 decades ago?
That was, those are those conservative times, very conservative. I'm sure we can find out.
So I would be interested in moving this forward for the full council discussion. So Madam Chair, I would make a motion to recommend that council approve amendments, to the municipal code section 5.08.170 to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages by a nonprofit theater and to remove the restriction related to proximity to a park.
I'll second that for discussion.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I have one. So when you say liquor license is one thing, beer and wine is another.
Yes.
Okay, so one more question. I'm thinking beer and wine, that's kind of what this started off as to help the theater.
Yes.
So theoretically, NIC could do beer and wine during intermission on a musical or a play. They would come and get the same permit because they
Through their
are.
nonprofit theater. So we're specifically
This is
cordoning off
just
the
about them.
nonprofit theater section. So if
Okay.
they were doing you did summer theater there for a while,
We
that's
can
a
already
private
do that.
nonprofit.
Yeah, we can already do that by permission of our president, every time we look at it. We don't come to the city for permission on
Okay.
that one.
Sorry, I forgot about that.
all right.
So that means we can drink on their beach too, right?
Nope.
Just like the
Not our beach.
What?
It's not our beach.
Don't you remember that? Oh, that's
county
right, it's our beach, darn. So the difference
Woody
between,
Pandora's box.
Right.
Let's put it back in.
sorry. So liquor license, beer and wine is different, as we have, so the art stores and thrift stores all can serve liquor, beer and wine in their stores, not serving food anytime they want.
Well, no, Woody,
Downtown.
obviously, it starts with they have to have a license. So
Beer
these
and
are
wine.
licensed
Okay.
establishments. So they go and they get a beer and wine license from the state, they get approval from the county, then
Gotcha.
they come to the city.
Okay.
But we still have to monitor their zone, make sure they're in the proper zone. So this particular amendment would just say, for properties that were within 300 feet of a park, that were in a commercial zone, that have a license, could come to the city to apply to serve and consume on premise at the city location now.
I think I got it, I was
And then the
stretching
little
out.
exception is for nonprofit theaters that aren't a commercially zoned thing. And so really, when we started having that conversation, you have a nonprofit theater for summer theater, and you have the Lake City Playhouse Theater.
Okay.
Those are the only 2 we currently have in the city.
All right, I'm good, Your Honor.
And I agree with both of your comments. I think this is an antiquated rule and does level the playing field, just like Councilwoman Wood said, so I'm in support as well. That being said, we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 2, we have Deputy City Clerk Kelly Setters here with us for approval of a film production permit and hold harmless agreement with Henry Woolston, doing business as Net Slow Productions for use of city sidewalks in an alley as allowed by municipal code. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm here before you today, as you said, to ask for if city council should authorize a temporary permit with a hold harmless agreement for the use on city sidewalks for film production. Henry came and filled out an application to use the city sidewalks and alleyway. And it's located near, I have a map for you. It's located near the little pocket park there in between on Sherman and the alley off of 4th. And he's just gonna use the power out of the park. And he's going to be there June 11th between the hours of 10:30 p.m. to 5 a.m. So there won't be an impact. And he's going to use the power so he doesn't have the generators running, disturbing the people that live above those buildings. And there's 15 crew members and 7 casts. And legal staff has recommended the acceptance of the hold harmless agreement in place of the insurance, which is contained in your staff report for review. City staff has reviewed the plan and the use and finds that it meets the criteria within Municipal Code 17.08, which I provided in your staff report. The financial impact is the applicant will pay the temporary film permit fee in the amount of $100, together with a $150 refundable security deposit. So the city should authorize a temporary film production permit with a hold harmless agreement for the use of city sidewalks and an alley as outlined under Municipal Code 17.08.620. And I stand for any questions you have.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah.
All right, Woody.
You got anything, Christie?
No, go right ahead.
Sure, okay. So, we have a regular permit that we do this with. Why is this different? What is different about this, or is this just the normal way we do it?
There's a code in the section 17 that outlines a film permit.
Right?
And then you have insurance that goes with that. He's just asking that instead of, because he's a young fellow, to provide the big insurance payment for this short period of time.
Gotcha.
He just wants to waive that and just do the hold harmless permit in place of that.
Is that a choice for anybody that wants a permit, do a film permit downtown? Is that an option?
It's up to council to decide.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I don't have any questions. I think you explained it just
Mr.
fine.
Chairman, I'd like to recommend the council approve the film production permit and hold harmless agreement with Henry Wolstein, DBA Net Slow Productions, for use of city sidewalks and alley.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you,
thank
Kelly.
Thank you.
And our last item on the agenda today is a presentation from Deputy Fire Chief Thomas Greif, representing the fire department.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all today. So when I started working on this presentation a couple weeks ago, I had to ask myself, how in the world am I going to do a 10-minute presentation on everything that we do? And so I'm going to show you a short video that some of our staff created thanks to the new AV equipment that we acquired through the CARES Act. We Deputy Chief Bill DeRuyter and Eric Loney, with help with Jeff Crow, acquired $70,000 worth of AV equipment that police and fire can use to enhance our training abilities and to enhance our public education abilities, especially during COVID and when we were restricted to getting in groups and stuff. So this video is a result of that AV equipment that we have acquired. I'll show the video here in a second, and then I'll follow it up with a PowerPoint that is gonna, I wanna focus on the things that the community may not know that we do. I think everybody can agree, they know we go out, we put fires out, we go render aid, medical aid, we transport, we go to car wrecks, but some of the things internally that we do, I'm gonna focus on that for you in the PowerPoint after the video. So with that.
Coeur d'Alene Fire for a structure fire, 4455 Lennox Loop. We're getting several calls on this. Several neighbors are outside and they're trying to attack it with those.
Central BC, go ahead and start a second alarm for me then, please.
So that was our first video of probably many to come with the new AV equipment that we have. All right, so the mission of the fire service in general is pretty simple: save lives and protect property. But when we get into other things in our nation that have occurred, we have been forced into more of a all hazards fire department. So 30 years ago, we used to go put fires out, go to car accidents, and we dabbled a little bit in EMS. But nowadays, we have paramedics on our fire engines, we have RTF teams, which we were driven into the RTF world when active shooter incidents started occurring in a high frequency in our country. And everybody knows that 9/11 drove us into, a world that we're never going to see the fire service the same. So these are 4 teams that we have in our fire department that I don't know that the public knows all the time that that's the stuff we do. They know we put fires out and we go on EMS calls, but our USAR team or Idaho Technical Rescue teams, they specialize in the confined space, high-angle rescue, search and rescue, and water rescue parts of our world. And, you know, those can have to do with terrorism or they could have to do with Mother Nature. The K-9 team is probably one of our most popular teams that we have because everybody loves dogs. And when I change the screen, everyone's gonna go, oh. But they have the most exposure too. They get deployed a lot. The landslide in Oso, Washington 5 years ago, the hurricanes in Hawaii 2 years ago, the hurricanes in Florida, and then the unfortunate event at Silver Mountain last year where we had our K-9 team deployed for the avalanche. And then a lot of people don't know, but we do have SWAT paramedics. We currently have 2 SWAT paramedics. I had to go back and look. It seems like it's been forever, but we started that program back in 2014 when Sheriff Wolfinger approached us and asked us if we would listen to a concept that he had. So we sat down. It took several meetings to get to where we were comfortable with firemen going into buildings that aren't safe and guns and stuff like that. And it took a lot of convincing for me to convince my boss, Chief Gabriel, to even consider us moving in that direction. But we're to the point now where we've had 2 on the team for over 6 years. We have a 3rd one, hopefully joining the team in this fall. And they don't carry guns, but they go on all SWAT deployments. They stage in the Bearcat. They don't do entry teams or anything like that, but they're there in case something happens to one of the team members. And those are just some examples of some of the teams that we have or the services that we deliver in the fire department that we never used to be involved with. And the upper left picture is usually the most popular one that people like, but like I said, we've become an all-hazards fire department. And just in the last 25 years, you've seen this fire department triple in size. They told us we'd never have ambulances. We have ambulances. They told us we'd never have paramedics. We have paramedics. We have a USAR team. And so there's really nothing that a service that we don't provide right now. We're always trying to, expand our services as much as we can and have forward thinking as we go. As we venture into the things we do when we're not responding to emergencies, we get this call a lot. Question asked of us when we're doing tours and school visits is, what do firefighters do when they're not going on calls? And so I wanted to focus here. Our biggest asset in our fire department is our people, just as it is in any other departments in the city. And with that being said, we have to focus on health and safety at the forefront. So some of the examples that we have here when we talk about the 3rd bullet point down, Healthy In, Healthy Out initiative, that's an initiative that the IAFF came out with about 3 years ago. And the concept of it is we want to try to limit the exposure of firefighters from the first day they get hired until they retire to the carcinogens in our job. And there's certain ways we're trying to do that. We're always going to the city administrator asking to replace carpet in the fire stations with non-porous flooring so that we don't trap those germs. Our decon procedures at fires, we're cleaning up before we get in our apparatus to come back to the stations. We have mandatory PT time each shift for all crew members if call volume allows. We have mandatory annual NFPA physicals with our department physician, who is Dr. Gibbon right now. And we always try to provide the best PPE and equipment for our men and women to do their jobs safest and most efficient way possible. Our second priority is our training. So our concept is always going to be, we want to focus on the low frequency, high risk training. So when I say that, it's the stuff that we don't get to see a lot, we don't have a lot of exposure to, but it carries the most risk. And so certain examples of that, as you see there, you got a high angle scenario there where they're rescuing someone from the 5th story of the hotel down on Appleway. Wildland refresher is important because we don't get a lot of big wildland fires here, but we have there's a huge opportunity for one in our interface areas on the outsides of the city. Our monthly EMS continuing education is important because we don't get a lot of exposure to pediatric calls, but when we do, we have to be sharp. So we focus on those low-frequency, high-risk training opportunities that you'll see up there. And then this is the backbone of our department. It's the concept that was Chief Brunacini and Phoenix Fire years ago came up with a customer service concept. We need to look at the community as they're our customers. They're our taxpayers. We need to be nice, and we need to expand our services to them, not just run around with lights and sirens. And so our fire and injury prevention, public education, and community outreach is super important to all of us in this fire department. Those include fire safety lectures for children. We go to schools every time they invite us. We bring them to our stations for tours, and that's where we get to teach them the stop, drop, and roll, escape plans from their houses, safety things in their houses, get the little ones tuned into the safety things in their houses, and that could be some sort of injury prevention later on in life. We're really proactive with our Prevention Bureau, providing daycare inspections in conjunction with the Child Care Commission in the city. Our annual open house is a hit every year. Last year, we didn't get the opportunity to provide it because of COVID, but every year it gets bigger and bigger, and we're trying to guess how many hot dogs we need to buy this weekend, and we're always short. Community events, when somebody calls and wants a fire engine to come, we almost always try to get one there. We can't always attend the event for 3 to 4 hours, but we will always try to get a fire engine out to whatever event in the city that asks for one. Our mask promotion at the schools this year was huge, and that's going to lead me into partnerships here in just a minute, and I'll come back to that. A partnership with PD that we have is, Christy knows very well, that our mock DUI at the high schools. That's a huge event that we plan every year. It rotates from Lake City to Coeur d'Alene each year, and it's really put together good. And as you can see up there, some of the students looking, because we want it to be real and we want it to hit home with them. So we'll be doing that here coming up probably in the next few weeks with graduation on the horizon. And then our Firewise program for urban interface areas, and that's Inspector Bobby Gonder is in charge of that program in our fire department. Like I said, our community outreach, so this is the backbone of our organization. This is where we get to interact with the community in a non-traumatic, positive environment. It's not after a house burns down, it's not after they lost a loved one, but it's in these scenarios where, again, in a few weeks, the schools are gonna ask us to come out for field day and hose the kids down. And of course, everybody loves Sparky at the open house. And so community outreach is huge to us. And like I said, it's that customer service philosophy that we'll lead into here in the next slide, or next one after this. Our dedicated event standbys, as you guys know, this is what we do right now. We're ramping up our plans for, we're starting off with the Coeur d'Alene Marathon here this month, and then we're gonna lead into the two big ones, Ironman and 4th of July. So we're in the risk management business, and when we sit down and we look at these events, we look at challenges that could be posed to us for access, maybe the layout of the course. When you take an event like Ironman, where you're going to Higgins Point, and then you're going South 95 to Setters, that's quite a spread. And if you were to get an athlete that gets down on the highway, so we have to really pre-plan those and throw a lot of resources. And when I say resources, I mean dedicated resources, not resources that are on duty. We want to make sure that these events don't affect our daily staffing or when people are going to call 911 for daily stuff. So these are just events that we put dedicated resources at. So why is your fire department so successful? Two things that I think. The first one is our customer service philosophy. And like I said, Chief Brunacini from Phoenix Fire years ago came up with this concept, and it's provide the citizens and valued guests with a service that they didn't expect. So you can think to yourself, what do you expect when a fire engine comes to your house? And so we always want to take every opportunity to provide something that they didn't expect. So when a crew goes to a medical call at a storage unit and they transport the husband to the hospital, the engine crew stayed behind, emptied the U-Haul, locked the storage unit up, and took the U-Haul back for the family. That's customer service. A second example would be, we went to a house, one of the family members was transported. We'd been there a few times. The engine crew took it upon themselves to go buy the materials for a wheelchair ramp, come back on their off-duty time and build the ramp. And of course, they don't tell admin they're doing this because they don't want recognition for it, but we always find out. And so those are examples of what customer service is to us. We try not to do cats and trees, but we will go out and we will help citizens do that if we can do it in a safe manner. And now back to our community partnerships, and these are, I don't know, this is probably the most valuable thing we do. And the top two partnerships we have, in my mind, are the relationship we have with our local 710 and with other city departments. Those are the things that make this organization run. We couldn't do our call volume on day-to-day basis. We run average 24 calls a day, but we need the help from other fire departments that are our neighbors and law enforcement agencies. We don't have boundaries anymore. We cross Prairie, we cross Hutter, and we go past Cougar Gulch now. Our hospitals and care facilities are important. NIC and our school districts are really valuable to us, and I'll hit on that here in a second. And then, of course, right now during the pandemic, it was really important for us to show support for the health district during, the last year and a half of nothing we've ever experienced before. And then, of course, our local businesses. We try to support our local businesses. So Local 710. Local 710 is the fire department, and the fire department is Local 710. But we always like to recognize the things they do, because everything they do out there in the community reflects in a positive manner on the fire department and the city. And so these are just some of the events that you guys are probably well aware of. The mobile Santa and food drive is just, they exceeded expectations this last year, and they did one in the summer too. So they did a COVID Santa last summer, and that was a huge hit also. But, MDA, that's our identity, fill the boot. The stair climb for leukemia in Seattle, and hopefully we'll get back to that this year. And then the bottom two, the pipes and drums, they're the best around, and everybody wants them for all their events. And then, of course, our honor guard works in conjunction with them, and they're a great resource to have. And, they'll go do any requests that people call for funerals, or they're always there. They're always willing to go help. Doesn't have to be in the city. Our NIC relationship and school district, and these are starting to pay dividends to us, because these programs that we started back in, I had to go back and look, but it was 2005 with the EMT program at NIC, CPR, first aid, AED training, and then our Firefighter One program. But we're starting to see the young adults that went through these programs getting jobs with us and getting jobs in other fire departments. And so it's nice to see that. We're a paramedic intern site for other paramedic schools across the country. So we get requests for students to come here and do their internship, because we have such a variety of resources here. We can go 10 minutes to the east and be rural medicine. We can be in town close to a hospital. So there's a vast majority of our care we're a busy system also. So we get paramedics that want to come here and do their internship. And then our high school cadet program that was created back in, I think it was 2016. We hired a firefighter from Ventura County, Greg Thaxton, and they had this program where he came from. So he pitched a proposal to us. We thought it sounded great. He sold it. He went and met with the school districts. And so every semester they interview and select 3 high school students to be placed on a shift in our department. And they get to learn how to be part of the team. They get to go on calls. They don't get to go and do structure fires or anything like that, but they get to learn that teamwork, the commitment, the responsibility, and it's a 4-credit class for them in high school. And there's a waiting list all the time. And so that's a great opportunity for us to have a partnership with the school district on top of the mask promotion that we did. And this is probably one of the best things we've done, you know, in years, is we figured out a way to team up with the Area Agency on Aging and Panhandle Health and go provide mobile vaccinations to homebound individuals in the 5 northern counties. We just concluded our first round of that, so we'll be going back out in 2 to 3 weeks to do the second dose for the ones that received the Moderna and not the Johnson & Johnson. Like I said earlier, staffing plans for the upcoming Ironman and 4th of July, we're really getting in depth with those because those are 2 big events for us. We currently have 3 personnel in paramedic school with another 3 starting in the fall, so that's exciting. We'll have 6 new paramedics. The turnaround on a paramedic student is 2 years, so from the time they start until we can use them on the street is right around 2 years, sometimes 2.5 years. And we will be beginning our preparation for our GEO bond in 2025. And all of this stuff put together and the AV equipment that we have is going to help us market that. We need to use that equipment to let everybody know what we do, that we are an all hazards fire department. Of course, we have our ongoing boat station project that's ramping up right now. We have the possibility of a 3rd ambulance, hopefully within 12 months when funding gets there. And then, of course, we're always looking ahead and planning for Fire Station 6 down the southeast corridor. And I'll entertain questions or comments at this point. I know it's a lot. I tried to keep it to 10 minutes.
Madam Chair. Well, you know, it was fabulous. It was a great video, great presentation. You know, I've had the privilege of working alongside Coeur d'Alene Fire for many, many years as a law enforcement officer. And, you know, it's a different call, there are 2 different callings for sure. Most police officers absolutely don't want to go into a burning building. They will if they have to, but pretty rare. And firemen are not really trying to run toward an active shooter unless they have to. But we do overlap.
Yeah.
And I've always been impressed with the level of professionalism of Coeur d'Alene Fire. And from thinking back from when I started in 1990 to where the department is now, I mean, you're just always reaching, always going that extra step in professionalism. And you are the premier department for smaller agencies to try to emulate, to reach for, oh, we want to do that. Oh, this will help our community. They can study your department because of all the hard work and decades of making this happen for our community. So I love it that you put this together, that you're showing it to council, that you're going to show it out in the community. I had the privilege of going to a lot of the events that you've been part of. You always welcomed law enforcement, and I just couldn't be more pleased with, again, the level of professionalism of the fire department and the dedication and the relationship with the community. So very excellent, Tom.
Thank you.
Well, she just about said it all, but no, this is really a different approach for you guys. It's kind of nice to see. It makes my heart feel good. A couple of things, you said one of the things you guys strive for is being nice. That hits home. I think that's important. The other thing is part of that success. You had a lot of things about success, but I think your leadership is what part of your success, your historical perspective on things, why you guys do a lot of the things you do, and it's only grown, and it's always positive, but that leadership has gotten you where you are, and I think that's important to me.
Yeah.
And part of my history is with you guys. So, yeah, this is awesome. This is a different. I like it. Feels good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and
welcome.
I just can't thank you enough for what you and the entire department does for our community, and just stellar examples of integrity and standing by what our community represents. You know, just being nice is such an understatement, but just having that true integrity and caring for our citizens. So thank you, and great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Sorry if I went over my 10 minutes. I tried to keep it.
So worth it, so worth it. Well, having no other business, That concludes our General Services Public Works Committee meeting today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yeah, thanks for
My
joining
first
us.
time.
Thanks for
Never
joining
been on
us.
this side. I'm always in the dirt.
Thanks for